I also love the feel of the reel. Now, that's my first bluegill on the Jenko double down. If you've been curious if this reel works for panfish, there's your answer. What's up, guys and girls? Your boy the Hunter Fisher. Welcome back to the Epi Banger video. And today, guys and girls, I forgot to film my intro, or well, I didn't forget to film my intro. I filmed my intro and it did not look the way I wanted it to. So what we're gonna be doing today is we're gonna be talking about it after I've already filmed the whole video and the outro. The video today is going to be all about the Gekkabijin AIR TW PE special. This reel it came out last year in 2021. It's been kind of a reel that's been in a lot of talks because it's said to have been the upgrade of the Alphas AIR TW that came out in 2020. Do I think the same thing? We're gonna find out today. I learned a lot more about this reel and I've used it over the past couple of months in saltwater. Mainly that's what I got this reel for, is saltwater fishing near me, casting a little bit heavier gram lures and doing a lot more redfish, trout, flounder fishing near me using this reel for that. But I also am going to be using this reel today for panfish specifically, just because it's a little bit closer to me and it's less of a drive because gas prices suck. I'm going to be talking about this reel in the light of panfish today. I'll be talking about even the relation of it to trout, because some guys are even using this reel for trout fishing even though it's technically a light game reel. If a reel is designed for something specific, you don't necessarily have to use it for that exact thing. So I'm going to tell you ahead of time, don't feel like you're necessarily having to do saltwater fishing because you have the Gekkabijin AIR TW. I bought it for saltwater fishing to cast really light swim baits, really light stuff in saltwater, because I'm loving the light game aspect of BFS right now, where I'm catching big redfish, big trout, big flounder, all on light gear, and it's a lot of fun using 8-pound, 6-pound, even 4-pound braid to do so, and it's a lot of fun. And I feel like I've gotten a really good opinion of this reel over the past few months. I actually had an unboxing video, but I believe I actually had to take it down because of my former employer, like I say later in the video. Without further ado, let's get into the video. I'm going to cast lures all the way from sub 1 gram up to 4 or 5 grams. So if you guys are wanting to see more about that, you guys stay tuned for the rest of the video. And I think I'm going to stop talking now and let's get on the water and go catch some fish. I'll see you guys there. One thing to note, guys, is that the park I'm at actually has a frisbee golf course, so that's actually pretty cool. But yeah, guy actually just hit a driver over here, so I'm gonna walk across here. All right, guys, let's walk on out here. The lure I'm starting with today is a little Z-Man Chatterbait Flashback Mini with a Bobby Garland baby shad. I also am using a Jackson Quan snap, so that's gonna add like 0.2 of a gram to it. So this is probably a 2.5 to 3 gram lure complete, and I have my brakes set on 10. Let's turn that down to 8. The grass has moved out from the sides, that's okay, but hopefully we don't lose a couple lures today. I would be very upset if I lost this lure. Knock on wood. We're gonna try to cast it in an area where I won't get snagged, and I also have less obstructions. So we're gonna be casting for distance, just testing out different lures. Goal is obviously to catch a fish at the end of the day with every fishing trip, but right now I'm more focused on showing you guys this reel and what I love about it. So I just casted that about 25 to 30 yards. So first thing I want to note about this reel, just to tell you guys, is that the reel itself is generally seen as somewhat of an upgrade to the Alphas AIR TW model. This is actually more specifically designed to use braid. So the Alphas AIR TW was designed really to cast down to a gram with most lures, most natural setups. So say you're using 3-pound mono and you're trout fishing, that is going to be the reel for you. But this reel was actually more specifically designed for accurate casting in saltwater, night jigging pools for aji, doing a lot of that type of fishing. Still small lures, but at night, so it's a little bit different. You're using braid, things like that. But I'm from Florida, so we almost always are using braid. That is why I opted to get this reel as well as the Alphas AIR TW. So like I said, it's seen as somewhat of an upgrade, not necessarily meaning that it is the upgrade. It's people consider it an upgrade for a couple of different reasons. The first reason I would say is that it has more bearings than the Alphas AIR TW. It has 12 bearings, and the Alphas AIR TW, I believe, has 6 or 7. I cannot remember right now, but I know a few people say it usually has 7, but there might be like a roller ball bearing or something like that. But that is the first thing I wanted to point out about the Gekkabijin AIR TW PE special, that it has a special reel spool and it's also a little bit smoother than the Alphas AIR TW. Actually, I would say it's a lot smoother. I actually replaced the handles on the Alphas AIR TW because it did not feel that smooth to me, even though they're both like very expensive reels. This chatterbait looks awesome in the water. We're gonna switch lures and I'm gonna talk a little bit more to you guys. All right guys, we just switched to the 16th ounce soft lock Eurotackle jig with a Eurotackle B Vibe and Fire Tiger. This color has always done it well for me, but that is gonna be about 2.5 to 2.9-ish grams if I had to guess. But just to touch on a couple more different details of the Gekkabijin AIR TW is that, well, there's two factors that are in the Gekkabijin AIR TW that you'll notice. Is there's going to be the hyperdrive gearing, so that's actually gearing that's meant to essentially be stronger, more smaller gear teeth in between the gears. Oh, I got grass. But it's going to be a lot smoother reel performance. So say like you're gearing like in micro modules with the Shimano reels, you're having a much smoother experience with the reel itself. So it's going to feel like an overall general smoother performance, especially with the more bearings that are in this reel. And talking about hyperdrive, there's also the hyperdrive clutch, which I believe is the mechanism that has to do with the pinion gear of the disengaging, engaging of the reel spool. So it's going to be a lot smoother, I guess, last more over time, better for saltwater situations, you know, that sort of deal. So that's another little factor that's different from the Alphas AIR TW to the Gekkabijin AIR TW PE Special. Very long name, but I think this is the first on the water video I've actually done of the Gekkabijin. I've fished with it a lot of times, like a lot. I've gotten a good opinion of it. I've actually even hooked into a snook with this reel and I freaked out and it was really cool. But I would say that this reel is awesome, especially in saltwater. I use it for finesse saltwater, so like Ned rigs, small swim baits, things like that. Even weightless flukes, I use it for trout and it's great. So if you guys are looking to use this for saltwater, I 100% agree that you should try it out. I've caught big redfish on this already. I've caught some big trout on this. I've caught a couple of flounder. I wish I could catch more flounder. Flounder are my favorite fish to eat besides the speck. Another thing I just remembered. So I'm gonna point this out really quick. Let's see if I can pull it out. I can't pull it out, but I'll probably include a video here where I show you guys what I'm talking about. But it's just kind of like this, it's a mechanism that causes the braking of the air system. It's an all air-based braking system reels, but the travel distance of the mechanism itself is actually a smaller travel distance in the Gekkabijin compared to the Alphas AIR TW. I don't know if maybe that's made a huge difference, but I do think that I think that this reel has more solid performance for me so far than the Alphas AIR. I don't know if there is a more solid performance or not. I can't say things like that and know for sure. I'm not a reel mechanic, so I don't know if it really makes the biggest difference, but I do feel like I get more consistent casting with braid on this reel. So yeah, that is one thing people will say, oh, well, obviously it's gonna get more consistent casting when you're using braid on both reels. I understand that. One reel was designed for braid, one technically wasn't. They tell you specifically not to use monofilament on this reel, so you do not get this reel expecting to use monofilament. I would suggest if you buy this reel, buy a replacement spool, because if you buy this reel and get a replacement spool that isn't a PE special spool, you're gonna have better performance with your monofilament. So see, I just had a little bit of overrun there, but that's okay. I actually forgot to use my thumb. This reel so far has been awesome, especially for me as a Florida fisherman who's using braid 100% of the time. Another point I want to make, guys, that has to do with the spool of the reel itself. So as you guys may have heard me mention, that this reel has a specific PE spool that they tell you not to use monofilament with. So one thing I've actually noticed with the use of my Alphas AIR is I actually use braid on my Alphas AIR. I know a lot of people would have problems with that, but I prefer the performance of braid versus fluorocarbon and monofilament. I've used 4-pound copolymer, monofilament, fluorocarbon, all different options on the Alphas AIR, but I just have not been the biggest fan of them. They coil up, they have a lot of line memory, and I hate line memory because it makes you cast worse. That's just my opinion. Each and every person has their own differences in how they fish. There is no wrong or right way to fish. But with that said, I will say that the Alphas AIR TW, when you're using PE/braid with it, I will say you do get kind of, if you notice on the spool here, they have lips on the side. That is preventing kind of what the problem I noticed with my Alphas AIR TW was. So the Alphas AIR TW had where it would stack up on the sides slightly with braid. I don't know if that's just me or maybe other people deal with the same issue as well, but I do believe that it had to do with the use of braid on that reel, while this reel is more specifically designed for braid usage. I don't know if it's a big deal, I don't know if it's not, but this reel fixed where essentially I didn't have to deal with that anymore. Here, let's do some more accurate casting. So one thing I noticed with this reel is there's a lot more controlled braking. It's kind of more of a consistent braking, where versus on the Alphas AIR TW, it gives you a little bit more freedom. So if you're somebody who wants a little bit more controlled braking, I definitely think this reel would be for you, because this reel has a lot more control. I think it's meant because, like, say if you're using heavier lures in saltwater, you can actually use heavier lures in saltwater and not have the biggest of problems. What I'm doing right now is just showing you guys the ability to do accurate casting with the reel, with the right rod. But say if you're example of me and you're using this rod and this reel setup and you're using it to catch panfish like crappie around docks and bluegill around docks, I think that reel is going to do a great job of spot casting and finding those little corners and pockets that you want to hit. So I'm like literally like trying to play target practice with these plants right now. I'm trying to remember the name of these plants. I think it's like hyacinths, or I don't remember right now. I just know that whenever these bloom, typically bass love to sit underneath them. So I would be flipping if it was normal bass fishing. I do think that this reel is really good as far as terms of control. So a lot of what I've noticed on Reddit and talking to other people about BFS is that some people don't prefer that controlled feeling of Daiwa brakes. I don't know why. To me, you're buying a bait caster for its automatic braking system with certain lines, because the issue with spinning gear is like you lose control sometimes. Like spinning gear tends to have line memory, you have line twist. With bait casters, you have a much more controlled feeling with it, and instead of having a learning curve to figure out spinning gear and being more accurate with it, you're learning how to use a bait caster. You learn how to spot cast better where you are, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to relearn how to cast a certain way to get better at it and get more spot heavy casting, you know. So in my opinion, I prefer bait casters to have a more controlled braking system for the fact of that's what their design is for. I don't want to have to thumb all the way on my spool to do that, because at the end of the day, your thumb's going to produce more friction than the reels itself, the reel's braking system itself, just because your skin has more surface area it's touching versus the magnets itself that are controlling the spool rod. It's hard to explain, but the point is that I buy a bait caster to have a braking system, not to have a loose braking system. Some people are really good with their thumbs, but fun fact, I had an injury to where my thumb doesn't bend all the way, so I prefer a little bit more control on my reels. That might have something to do with how I prefer my reels, but I love them nonetheless so far. So you guys are probably curious of how the lightweight casting ability is. I just casted a 16th, so you probably don't think that that is that light. I personally think that's really light, but we are going to cast a 32nd and see how that performs. So I'm gonna get the Eurotackle soft lock tungsten jig out, get one of these bad boys out, and we are going to put that on and see how it casts. Give me one moment. Wow, that was pretty good. So I've never actually even casted this light on this reel before, I think. So this was actually a first for me trying to cast this light on this reel. But talking about this reel, one of the biggest things for this reel is to me is the drag itself. So from the Alphas AIR TW to this reel, you have a stronger drag, I believe, a more consistent drag. I'm not sure if maybe I know less or more about it. I think it has to do with the hyperdrive itself. But if you listen, this reel has a drag clicker while the Alphas AIR does not. So the Alphas AIR has no drag clicker, but there is an aftermarket drag clicker available from Sagisi Customs. You can install that yourself, but with the Gekkabijin AIR TW, you get it stock on the reel, and it's very loud. I will say with the Sagisi Customs reel clicker, oh, I just got bit. Oh man, I just got bit. That was the first bite of the day. I told you guys, this little lure gets bit everywhere. The Sagisi Customs drag clicker is one, awesome. It's very consistent and very smooth, very reminiscent of the Steez Air drag clicker from what I understand. And that was at least his goal, is what he told me. And this drag clicker is also very smooth, but it's also a little bit louder, I will say. The Sagisi Customs drag clicker is not as loud as this drag clicker. And that has a reason, because the reason why is simply because it's in salt water. In salt water, you have things like wind that are constantly going to be an issue for you. So the drag clicker is a great little feature to have. So I always recommend using reels that have drag clickers because I love them. So far, this reel has been one of my favorite reels to have, and look at the aesthetics right now. Killer aesthetics. But another thing is the drag. So that was definitely an upgrade from the Alphas AIR, because Alphas AIR didn't have a drag clicker, and one of the most prominent industry standards, at least in BFS now, is becoming the drag clicker. Like, if your reel does not have a drag clicker, not many people are interested in it. I don't know why that is. Pretty much all the Shimano BFS reels have drag clickers. Daiwa Alphas AIR, the Alphas SV, I think, has a drag clicker. The Daiwa Steez has a drag clicker. The Daiwa Alphas AIR didn't. I don't know why, it just didn't. And a lot of people are installing drag clickers anyways aftermarket, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So yeah, upgrade from the Alphas AIR TW. Once again, speaking of aftermarket, guys, if you guys notice, I have different knobs on this reel. While this is a review, I need to talk about everything I hate and don't like on the reel as well. And my number one thing is I don't like the Daiwa handles. Daiwa knobs bother me because they're like plastic isn't comfortable with me. And while many would agree or disagree with me, I'm just not the biggest fan of them. So I switched them out with Gumexus knobs, and I absolutely love the look of the reel now. I also love the feel of the reel now. It feels a lot smoother. Well, not a lot smoother, but just slightly smoother. I'm getting nailed by a bunch of bass right now. That was crazy. This little lure catches everything. We are getting really good casting distance right now on this reel, on this lure. It's probably about 20 yards-ish, so not bad at all. Let's try going down in breaks a little bit by 1. We're at 7 now. We're going to keep casting. Oh, wow. Let's try going down 1 more on that, because that was really easy. But yeah, I like the knobs that I installed in here a lot more than I like the Daiwa knobs. They seem to wear away easy for me. I have a Tatsu Elite, and oh, there we go. Little fish, little bluegill. There we go, guys. That's my first bluegill on the Jenko double down. That's a stud bluegill right there, guys. That's a little copper nose. That's a bluegill sunfish or something like that. But yeah, caught a little bluegill on the EPF Swim. Sweet. See, I love catching bluegill. They're like one of my favorite fish to catch, besides crappie. But they are so annoying with their fins because they are so spiky. But that's a little bit of that's a male bluegill, I believe. So we're gonna toss him back in. Right there, he's back in. And that was on the EPF Swim, guys. On the EPF Swim at like 1 point something grams with the Gekkabijin AIR TW. So if you've been curious if this reel works for panfish, there's your answer. That is your answer right there. Oop. I'm trying to learn how to use less magnets in my casting, just so I can get better at thumbing the spool, but it's a learning curve for sure. Oh, I just got bit again. The bluegill are right here, guys. The gills are right here. Ugh. Also, another suggestion, guys, with this reel is I learned how much line you really want to put on this reel, and I always recommend to follow manufacturer advice, but the recommended line you want to put on here is about 50 meters worth. So that's about 50 yards, 60 yards worth. But no, that's about 45 to 50 yards worth. But you want to put what they recommend on there because it casts better. And as far as terms of reeling, your line might go up over the spool if you put too much. So, oh man, I cannot get my thumb to do what it needs to do. This is what I was saying, guys. You want to make sure your braking system's set right. But see how here, if you let the line get loose over the spool, it's going to spool over top. So always put the recommended line amount, otherwise you're going to run into that issue pretty often. Oh my God, that's a stud bluegill. I might have to try a little crankbait here soon, but we're just doing light casting right now just to try it out. Let's get that line out of there. There we go. Trying to fix my messed up reel. But yeah, this, with the line I'm using, guys, by the way, is Varivas Light Game. I had this reel set up for using for saltwater specifically, but I've been using it a lot in freshwater, and I absolutely love it just as much for bass BFS too. But today we're doing some panfish BFS and just having a little bit of fun. Today's a Saturday. I wanted to get outside and just do something because I was bored. So here we are. See, guys, I barely have to thumb it on 7. So 6 takes a little bit of getting used to. So if you guys want a reel that has a lot of airy feeling to where it's not over controlled, this reel can do that as long as you set it up the right way. I know guys like Hobie and whatnot like to set their reels at like 3, 4. I can't do that as well as those guys. I'm still getting used to it because of my messed up thumb, but I can still launch my lures the same. That's all that matters to me. I could probably get like maybe a couple extra feet or more with the reel if I got used to thumbing the spool a little bit more, but it takes time. I need to do like physical therapy for my thumb. So guys, typically this is the lightest I'll personally go whenever I'm fishing a place. So I haven't really tested the 1 gram castability on this reel, like the exact 1 gram. So why don't we test that really quick? Let's test to see how well can this reel cast a gram with some 0.4 go braid, which is about equivalent to 8.5 pound max breakage. So yeah, I don't know how this is going to go because this reel wasn't specifically designed for a gram, but it might cast a gram better than I would even assume, you know. But we're going to try a 1 gram lure next, and then after that we're going to try this little Z cranker from Eurotackle. Eurotackle has some great stuff. They sell them on Bait Finesse Empire. If you guys want to check them out, go ahead. I'll leave some links down in the description. But we are going to try a sub 1 gram lure now. So if you guys have watched my channel for any amount of time, you guys have heard of this brand. This is the Mule Jig 1/80th ounce jig head paired with the Mule Jig Mule Donkey Tail Junior. So this plastic is an 80th itself, and then the jig head's an 80th. So this is going to be weighing about 0.6 to 0.7 of a gram, and then this snap that's on here is probably going to weigh 0.2 grams itself. So this is a sub 1 gram lure on this rod and reel combo. So let's find out if this reel can really cast sub 1 gram. Guys, there is a ton of little bluegill and bass feeding directly in front of me, so I think that this lure is going to be perfect for them. Oof, backlash. I love throwing these little plastics because the drag of the floating plastic actually can help you a lot with getting that natural representation of the lure, so it looks more minnowy. I don't know if they can even see the lure, to be honest. It's so dirty in this water. There we go, we're getting a little bit better. Trying to see how this casts. This isn't casting amazingly, but it's casting about as good as my Alphas does. So at the end of the day, it's doing what it does. But if you're fishing with 1/80th ounce jig heads, 1/100th ounce jig heads, you don't want to use a setup like I'm setting up. Well, I mean, this rod is rated for down to 1/80th, so I would definitely recommend using this rod at least. But what I would recommend is, since this spool is interchangeable with most Alpha spools, actually I think it's interchangeable with all Alpha spools, I would recommend actually getting a lighter spool. So there's a spool called the AX22 that's coming out from Roro Spool. It's going to be available on Bait Finesse Empire. I think it's actually available for pre-order right now. But that spool is going to be a lot better for your sub 1 gram casting. So if you're wanting to cast sub 1 gram trout fishing and stuff like that, then you're going to need to get a different spool. I would just recommend getting a different spool. You're going to have a lot more controlled lightweight casting. You're just going to have a better experience with it. See, I just tried doing it with no thumb and it didn't turn out bad. It overspooled, then ran back, and as soon as all I had to do was just let it run a little bit and it went back to what it was doing. So not bad at all. See, I would say I'm casting just a slight bit further than I was with the Surinoya Dark Wolf Ultra reel. That reel's awesome too. It's a budget reel. Oh, I just got turned on, mother hecker. Oh, there's a red ear sunfish. Oh, but we're gonna try a couple of different lures here today before we head out. All right, guys, the next lure we're gonna cast is this Eurotackle Z cranker in the baby bluegill color. I've actually not really ever caught a fish on this. I've been trying to catch one for so long, so it's kind of like a crappie style crank. So we're gonna see how well it does. All right, we are definitely gonna have to turn up our brakes a little bit just for a heavier weight lure. This is an 1/8 ounce. So it's about 3.5 grams. That is over braked. With this lure, you have to crank a little slower because it dives down to a 5 foot, and with this fluorocarbon, it's probably diving all the way to the bottom. Oh, geez, this thing dives quick. Oh, there it goes. And that is goodbye to that crankbait, guys. I guess the leader just popped off. That was a bad leader knot. My bad. Sick. It casted so good it popped off. That's what happened, guys. It just casted that good. And stuff like that happens sometimes, especially whenever you're getting used to tying your leader knots. I tied an FG pretty well. I don't know why it popped off. Maybe it was just how I cut it, but well, no, I didn't crimp it good enough whenever I did my FG. Like I said, guys, I never caught a fish on it, and I don't think I ever will. In fact, that lure floats, so whoever's gonna get it next might catch a fish on it. Good for him. But I do not get the opportunity to catch a fish on that lure anymore. But we are going to retie a leader, and we're probably going to spend probably about 10-15 more minutes fishing because your boy is tired and getting sweaty as all get out, and your boy has dinner to cook tonight. So yeah. All right, guys, the next lure we're going to try is this Affilliate 45 SVG. So it's a light game tune lure, 2.2 grams. This is actually meant for saltwater, like what this reel is meant to do as well. But I'm gonna hear using it in freshwater again today, so we just don't like following the rules. So it's 2.2 grams and it's sinking lure. We're just gonna try it out, cast around, and then I'm probably calling it a day because your boy's tired. I would try a jig here, but I've already done a video showing catching fish on the jig with this exact same combo, and the shade line was amazing. So fish are active. Figured I'd try to see if I can find some feeding fish with this little minnow type bait. Hopefully I don't lose this too. I tested my leader knot several times. It's just when you're tying with line this thin and you can't even see the knot, it's tough to get a great knot. So yeah, we're gonna try again. Oh, there we go. I just remembered something. So one thing I kind of wanted to talk about with this reel is that the braking system feels more forgiving, I would say, than the Alphas AIR TW does. I would say the Alphas AIR TW is a very good braking system. Both of them are great because they're the same, but I want to say that this reel feels a lot more, I would say that this reel feels a lot more forgiving in terms of how well can it perform as far as braking wise. This lure is going to be a lot more reminiscent of like what people are fishing with for trout for. So if you guys are looking at even at this reel for trout fishing, this is still going to be a great lure to do, because, or not great lure, this is still being a great reel for that. But I think that if you're trout fishing, even this reel is going to still perform very great for you. But if you're not somebody who uses cranks and like stuff like the Ryuki minnows, if you're not somebody who's minnow cranking for trout, you might want to replace the spool on this reel, because the lightweight casting is, it's okay. It's not amazing, but I would say that this reel system has a lot more forgiving brakes than its predecessor of the Alphas AIR. Alphas AIR is still a great reel, like I said, but I say the braking system, like if you're using heavier lures like in saltwater, let me fix my camera. If you're using heavier lures like in saltwater, I think that this is definitely a great reel for that, because you can literally bomb cast, like on paddle tails and stuff. You can still get really great casting with. I can still go lower in my brakes, speaking of which. I'm just surprised this doesn't get bit, because I feel like this lure is the same imitation as the inline spinner, and I just don't know why it doesn't get bit the same way here, because inline spinners where I'm fishing right now are great. There we go, that's some better casting. So this rod's actually pretty good for jerkbaits as well. I've been testing this rod for as many different lures and many different techniques as I could. I have preferences, obviously. This rod's a very good moving bait rod. So say if you're somebody who wants to fish what I'm doing right now, I think it's great to do that, because this moderate fast action is really nice. I almost hit that grass patch. Oh, now we have a Whopper Plopper. Sick. This rod paired with this reel is really great for panfish, because I mean panfish, a lot of people, you're not going to be really going sub 1 gram that often unless you're trout fishing. I just feel like whenever you're fishing current, that's when sub 1 gram really matters. So if you're wanting my honest recommendation, don't be getting this reel expecting a sub 1 gram casting reel. I mean, it can do it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's useful. I just personally, I'm not a big sub 1 gram guy. I use sub 1 grams often enough to have a need for a setup that can do it, but if you want to be casting sub 1 gram lures, you've got to spend the money to find the possibility of it. You've got to find a different spool. You've got to get better brakes. I mean, not brakes, bearings, because like a ceramic hybrid bearing is going to really find you a new ability to cast sub 1 gram lures a lot better. So I mean, if you really want to cast sub 1 grams lures and you want to get this reel, then get it. I want to say that it possibly is a pretty good setup if you're casting lures that light. I just don't think there's really a reason to be casting lures that light, in my honest opinion. I think that maybe you would have to replace the spool, replace the bearings, and find a different situation overall, because you can still get a little bit better performance for that range that you may be looking for. But the rod's casting these lures great, but as far as a panfish aspect, I think this reel is awesome. I think that even the Gekkabijin reel, I think honestly anything Aji based, if you're getting a reel or rod that does Aji, that's going to be awesome for pan fishing, because you have that extra fast action and you have quick hook sets and you have durable drags, because literally it's just going to be better performing overall, in my honest opinion. All right guys, we're wrapping up the video, just finishing up with the Gekkabijin AIR TW. If you guys want to check this reel out, I believe it's available on Digitaka. I've had a review video of this reel already out, but I actually deleted it because of my former employment. Point is, this video right here is all about the Gekkabijin AIR TW PE Special. I think this is a great reel if you're using it for panfish, bass, saltwater. It really has been one of my most favorite reels in my arsenal lately. I only have 3 reels. I know that's a bunch of crap talking from a lot that's going to be coming my way, because I obviously don't know anything about BFS. Shout out to Curtis Medina over there. He's going to tell me I don't know anything about BFS once more again. Sorry guys. I've had a lot of random comments that are just so hateful lately, because with more content that I'm producing, I've just noticed that people want to voice their opinions even strongly, that's a great word to use to describe this right now. But point is when I've produced more content for guys and for you guys, and I'm trying my best to put out more stuff, the more hate that comes my way. And to be honest, I really don't care. I honestly make jokes about it most of the time, and if you guys look in my comment sections, I tend to try to egg it on a little bit because it's fun for me. That's kind of the enjoyment for me with YouTube, is like I can interact with anybody on the internet. At the end of the day, you're on the internet, and if you're willing to talk that way, dude, you're wasting your own time. At the end of the day, you're wasting your own time. I just like making jokes about that. But overall, since I don't know anything about this reel, I think you guys actually should check this reel out if you're wanting something that's a really great option for a lot of different facets of BFS. If you're wanting to have this reel for sub 1 gram casting, I don't necessarily think it's the best. I think there's maybe a couple other reels that would do it better. Alphas AIR TW and the Aldebaran BFS are a little bit more geared out of the box for this sub 1 gram casting. The next reel I'm actually going to be reviewing is going to be the Kestrel. I'm going to be trying that out very soon, hopefully getting a video on that out in the next week or two, and I will be putting a ton of lures on it and testing it out with this rod, because I absolutely love this rod. I had a lot to do with this rod, so I love it a lot. That is pretty much it I got to say about, I guess, all the Gekkabijin talk. It's been one of my favorite reels. I use it for light game specifically, but I've used it for panfish today just to try it out and see. I've used it for bass fishing, and bass fishing, it's awesome. It's an awesome reel for that, because the heavier lures it casts very well. Like I was using a miniature weightless Jenko yesterday. Awesome performance. If you want to use this reel for other things like slight game, it's even better. It's even better. So those are my suggestions. You guys hear it in the video here, and if you want to pick this reel up, I'll leave a link down below and you guys can pick it up there at Digitaka. If you guys want to pick up the rod I was using today, it's available on Bait Finesse Empire. If you want to pick up any of the lures I was using, also available on Bait Finesse Empire. Your boy's extra sweaty, so I kind of want to hurry up, wrapped up, and get out of here, because I've got to go cook dinner here in a minute. So I will see you guys in the next video, and as usual guys, remember, fish family.